Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I'm going to welcome you to another one of my live streams. In this live stream, we are actually going to take a look at five-ish comics that are X-Men related that may be undervalued. And they may be undervalued because of potentially what is going to be happening with Jonathan Hickman's run of the X-Men coming up and the fact that the X-Men will eventually come to the MCU. So these are not necessarily your high dollar books to begin with. These are books that are undervalued. In most cases, these are, under $20 or so with a couple of exceptions. But I want to start highlighting some of these books to bring some awareness for you all to consider whether these are the books that you want to pick up. And in some cases, you may already have these books in your collection. That is the ideal, right? The ideal is a book that you already have in your collection. You just have to go over to your bins and pull it out. And lo and behold, you have a great comic that is going to go up in value. So that's my hope. What I will say before we even show any books is that you always want to take some time to do your own research to make sure that the book that you are buying makes sense for you. And this comes on the tail end of a video that I just did yesterday talking about speculation gone wild. And it also dovetails with a vlog that I haven't even released yet that I just recorded a short while ago that I hope to release in the next couple of days. So with that, I want to say hello to some comic book soldiers. We're going to do some announcements real quick, and then we are going to jump into the five-ish books that may be undervalued. So let me say hello to the comic book soldiers who have joined me here in the room. Perry Comics is in the house. How you doing, my friend? Young T is here. Ayo, White Whale Comics is in here, coming straight out of Florida. Comic Book Brother is here. Hawaiian Punch in Your Face 72 is here. It's good to see you, my friend. Cuz Buzz. Randy is here. Felix is here. Jesse Tibbetts, I think this is the first time I've seen you in a live stream. Jesse Tibbetts, welcome to the live stream, my friend, and welcome to the channel if you are indeed a new subscriber. Comic Book Brother is saying, waiting on FedEx to drop off a few hot books. Bro, that's what's up. Bro, it doesn't even matter what's in the box. If it's coming from CGC, that is a mail call. So good luck, my man, on what you pull out of that box. Make sure you send me a message. Let me know what you got. John's Comics with Kids is in the house. I have two of the moderators here in the room, Whitewell and John's Comics with Kids. It's good to see both you guys. Reggie dropping midday live streams like a madman. Bro, if you got the free time, you connect with the people. If you have the free time, you do it. And that's why I'm here, because I also have a whole lot of fun. So John, it's good to see you, my friend. Who else? Johnny Future is in the house. It's good to see you. Wands is here, says finally made it for a live show. Is it Nivik Wands? It is good to have you here in the live stream. A lot of people dropping into the live streams now. Man, I have a lot of fun in these live streams, and I think people do as well. P. Patrick is in the house. Stacy's weekly comic book picks is here. Sammy Torres is here. Grizz is in the house. A lot of new people I've never seen before. It is good to see you guys. And I want to thank everyone for spending a little bit of your day with me. YouTube has been jacked up all morning. I've been trying to go live since like 8:30. And it's all jacked up. I couldn't log in. It kept kicking me out. It would see me as logged in, then it would kick me out. In fact, right now, I have no clue how many people are actually here in the chat, because it doesn't even give me the sign of the number of people. It doesn't matter, because we're still going to have some fun in here. Scrolling through some of the comments here. Alec, I would encourage you not to take decorating tips from John. I don't think that that's going to work out in your favor. Victor Olan is here. Victor, you sent me that message. You posted up comments or a question around whether I would do a video for YouTubers that are trying to get going. I don't know if I would record a video on that, but certainly if you want to reach out to me, we can have a conversation. Hit me up on Instagram. I talk to YouTubers all the time that are trying to start a channel, that have started a channel and are looking for feedback. I am happy to help anybody that reaches out to me. I just don't know if I want to do a video on it for the channel. And I have my reasons for that. But if you have questions, comments, thoughts, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram at Regie Collects, and we can definitely talk through some things. Dropping shade. John's Comics with Kids. What? Reggie dropping shade on me? Yeah, man. I just I don't know if you would be the guy I would go to for tips on decorating. Not sure about that, John. You're a fantastic guy. You're a great father. You are a great YouTuber. Decorating, not so much, my brother. Not so much. All right, so let me make a couple of announcements real quick before we get to the 5 undervalued books. So we reached 4,000 subs recently, and I think we're now up to like 4,207 or something crazy like that. This is the book that we are actually giving away as part of the 4,000 subscriber giveaway thing. So if you have a chance, check out the video here on YouTube. You cannot miss it because it's like 4K subscriber giveaway or something like that. Really nice graphic. This is the book that is going to be given away possibly even as early as this week. So you want to make sure you watch that video to get the details on how to enter the contest. And the video actually goes over specifically what this Avengers book is. Shout out to everyone that participated in this project because it is a dope project. So there you go on that one. And then one other heads up about this book right here. This is the book that we are giving away as part of the Go Collect giveaway. This is X-Men number 101, 6.5 white pages. This is a dope book. And I can tell you, this book is undergraded. This book is undergraded. I'm looking at this book and it has a lot of pressable defects in the cover of this book. In the backside, there are lots of pressable defects. There are also some defects that can be cleaned up. And then there's some ink somebody drew on the back of this. I just noticed that yesterday. But this book is right now a 6.5 with white pages. This book, if cracked, cleaned, and pressed, is probably a 7.5. That is my guess. That is my guess. But this book is undergraded. The previous owner never took the time to have the book cleaned and pressed. This book is definitely a higher grade book. So if you are interested in this book, you definitely want to stay tuned to the channel for the videos that I'll be releasing this week for the details on how to win this book. But this is the Go Collect giveaway for this week. So definitely stay tuned to the channel for details on how to add this to your collection. All right. So show the back. Oh, you want to see the back? It's just a really, it's not a, I don't know what it is. I don't really even know what that is that someone was attempting to draw here. It's like a nondescript thing. I don't even know if you guys can see. Yeah, you can see it. My light kind of washes it out just a little bit, but it is a nondescript kind of thing back there. I think you were talking about the other. So let me show this. Nivik says this is his proverbial white whale. White whale's here in the room. There's no need to be proverbial. But I think what Alex wanted to see was this right here. My man Alec actually participated in this this contest here. Not this contest, but this giveaway. He drew this fantastic cosmic Ghost Rider back here. I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking at it here on screen right now, and the video does not do it justice. It really does not do it justice. This thing is really dope. And again, shout out to every single YouTuber out there that actually participated in this this community project that I was doing. A lot of really talented people out there. I am not one of them. I simply, as you can see down here in the corner, I think that's my, yeah, I signed it down here. That is the extent of my artistic talent. I am not an Alec or a From Heroes to Icon or even a yeah, I'm none of those things. So there you go. All right, so let's get down to the brass tacks here, people. Let's I got you, buddy. I misunderstood what you were saying with the lag associated with the live stream. Where do I put my X? Not on this one, Greg. Not on this one. I may actually do it. Yeah, he does. Yeah. Randy is saying that Alec has some talent. Yeah, he does. As do you, my friend. As do you. We'll be showcasing some additional artwork from you very, very soon. What was I about to say? Shout out to Knights of Old. It is good to see you, my friend. We may actually do that project one more time. And for those that don't know, basically what I did is I sent out 2 comics all across the country to a bunch of YouTubers and invited them to basically sign or sketch on 2 sketch variants that I then ended up getting slabbed. One I am keeping. It is actually hanging up back there on the wall. It is a 9.8 featuring some fantastic artwork. This 9.2 unfortunately had a little bit of a corner ding on it, which got, which resulted in it being a 9.2, a slightly lower grade. but still a really good book because it was never really about the grades, to be honest with you. It was more about the community aspect of this thing. And now one of these books, the 9.2, is going to be given back to the comic book community. So I may end up doing this thing again. I may try to open it up to some people. The challenge is going to be how to open it up to people, right? Because I sent it to YouTubers because they're content creators, because I interact with them, because I know them. They can't hide because they're on YouTube, right? And the problem with going beyond YouTube is that I don't necessarily know some of the other people that would want to sign. And it was difficult enough for me to track the book's movement across the country, from person to person to person, from city to city, from state to state. It was pretty tough just using YouTubers, for example. And so the question is there a way to open it up to more people that are not content creators? I don't know the answer to that. It may be a little difficult, but I do want to talk a little. I want to think more about that to see if there is a way. But with that, let's go ahead and jump into the 5-ish underrated books from that are X-Men related. And so I want to get to this because I don't want to delay the meat portion of this video any longer, and we can maybe do some additional conversations, Q&A, that kind of stuff on the tail end of this video. So there is a tremendous amount of speculation that is happening right now with Jonathan Hickman and the work that he is doing on House of X and Powers of 10. My belief is that he is laying a foundation for what will ultimately be the mutants in the MCU. And so what I've tried to do through a little bit of thinking, a little bit of brainstorming, is to try to identify books that are potentially undervalued, featuring characters that could make their way into the movies in the future. And so all of this has to be taken with a grain of salt, because you have to do your own research and you'll have to decide whether these are the types of books that you want to pick up for your collection. Because the last thing I would want is for you to go right from this video to eBay to buying a book, and then you regret that decision later on. So with that caveat, what I'm going to be doing is showing you guys mostly raw books. I'm going to start off with one Slab book. I'm going to tell you the significance of this book, as well as the price that I am seeing for these books in the Key Collector app. Definitely you want to pull out a pricing guide, whether it be online or other, and figure out what the price points are for these books. But for the sake of consistency, I've used Key Collector app for this exercise. So the very first book is this book right here. It is X Factor number 24. I've actually had this book for a while in the collection, and this is actually the origin and first appearance of Archangel. It is the origin of Apocalypse. It is also the appearance of the Horsemen appear in this thing, and a person from the X Factor team actually leaves the team. Not really significant because he left the team. But this book actually, I believe, came out in January of 1988. Louise Simonson actually did the story on this, and Walt actually did the cover art and some of the interior panels. But definitely a really cool book here. I have to tell you that Archangel is much more exciting than is Angel. This is a really cool book. And right now, according to Key Collector app, this book is going out on a high dollar for about $35. Which is not a crazy price for this book. But I think Archangel is definitely a cool character that has some legs, especially with what is going to happen with potentially Apocalypse coming in, and potentially them doing some things with the four horsemen, of which Archangel was one of those characters. So that could definitely be interesting, depending upon which way they go with Apocalypse and some of the things that they are trying to do with the X-Men. But that theoretically is an undervalued book, even at $35. My guess is that the price is much lower if you're looking at some raw books versus a Slab book, but that is something to consider. All right. So scrolling through the comments, making sure, used to have that copy, had to sell it, most of his collection back in the 90s. Sniff says, great. Well, now is the time maybe to pick it up, my friend. Comic Book Brother is saying, yeah, I need to pick that up. Archangel is Wolverine level deadly. Yes, he is. I mean, he's actually a pretty dope character. So Chris Barrett is actually getting in the action here. He is offering up the next book that I am talking about right now, which is this book right here. This is the first appearance of Jubilee. And I didn't know this, that Jubilee is Chinese American. I don't know that I recognize that. I don't know what I thought, but she is a Chinese American. This book was written by Chris Claremont and drawn by Mark Silvestri. This book, like the last, is going for about $30 some odd. You can see that the seller of this book was actually trying to sell it at a con for $35. I did not pay that much money for it. I was able to work a deal and did not pay that $35. But this is actually a pretty nice copy of the book. It is not a 9.8. It is lower than that. I'm guessing that my man White Whale Comics actually has a couple of copies of this, as Jubilee is one of his favorites. I think I only have 2 copies of it. I want to say I need to go back to the bins. But this, as I'm looking at it, is probably not a 9.8, maybe a 9.4 is my guess, with some of the defects that I'm starting to see here, some of which may be pressable, but I don't know. But what makes this book interesting, of course, this is X-Men number 244, is that this book does not even feature Jubilee on the cover. And so that is a little bit of a downside for me. It would have been dope had Jubilee actually been on the cover of the book that she first appeared in, but it is what it is. Hydra Collectibles is in the house, but that book right there, X-Men 244, is going for high grade about $30. Again, you want to consult a price guide to make sure that the book that you're considering buying is close, if not below FMV, right? Depending upon what book that you want to go with. So the next 2 books are kind of like a the next, Chris says he got his copy for 10 or 15 bucks. He talked the guy down on price. There you go, my friend. That is where you go. I mean, if you can get it lower, you definitely try to get the book as least expensively as you possibly can. Why pay more? Jubilee has been seriously lacking in representation in the movies. Hope MCU uses her properly. You know, I think that Jubilee is just one of those underrated characters. You know, I've never seen her as like a wildly popular character. She's not close to Omega level, but she brings a certain amount of energy, pardon the pun, to a comic. But I don't know that she was ever really used properly. And it's going to be interesting to see how she is used moving forward. There have been some other announcements that have actually come out, following Jonathan Hickman's appearance at San Diego Comic-Con, where they are talking about how they're going to arrange some of the teams. And I have some notes that are not close to me, but they're actually doing some different things with some of the teams, like X-Force, Marauders, Excalibur, of course, the X-Men, Fallen Angels. A lot of these teams and titles are actually coming back, and they're going to be mixing things up. And so I actually thought that was pretty interesting. I may do a video on that. I'm not quite sure, but it'll be interesting to see how a lot of these characters are used moving forward in the X-Men continuity. So the next 2 books are kind of, this is where I was saying it's like an ish. This is like the 5-ish. These 2 are essentially going to count as 1. And so what I want to show you is this book right here. This is Uncanny X-Men number 282. And this is actually the first cover appearance and cameo appearance of my man Bishop. This is actually a lower grade book that I picked up recently for like a couple of bucks, maybe $5 or something like that. I have a 9.4 on the wall here right in front of me, but this is a nice copy of this book that I was able to pick up for a couple of bucks recently. And again, it's one of those books from the 90s that when you see it, you have to kind of pick it up. But this book right now, according to a Key Collector app, is going for about $10 in high grades. And one thing that I will also mention about this is that Bishop appears on the very last panel, a la Hulk 180 versus 181. But in this case, the market seems to have gotten this right, because this book is actually cover appearance is actually more expensive than this next book here, which is Uncanny X-Men 283. In the case of this book, this one is actually going for about $7 in higher grade. This is the first technically full appearance of Bishop, and it is also the first appearance of the Game Master. So that's why I kind of put these 2 books up together. You have 182, which is a cover and cameo appearance of Bishop. Then you have your full appearance in 283. So again, not too expensive for either one of these books. You're going to pay more if you buy these books slabs already, but these are relatively inexpensive at the raw grade at $10 and $7. Chris Barrett is selling his facsimile copy of X-Men number 1 for $500. Get it while you can, folks. I don't think that this book is going to last at those prices. I think, he missed a period. I think it's 5.00. So yeah, No rush, on that one. John's comments with Kid says that's a good first appearance. Reggie Bishop is awesome. He needs to get a higher grade version. Bro, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This is something that Whitewell and I have kind of debated and discussed in previous. We've actually done a video on this in the past. I'm sitting here looking at my Uncanny X-Men 282 first appearance of Bishop, cameo appearance, blah, blah, blah. And it's a 9.4. And I'm honestly regretting the fact that I never got a 9.8, because it's an inexpensive book. I should have gotten a 9.8 on this one. I mean, I should have at least gotten a 9.6. I want to say that this 9.4, the reason that I slabbed it was because this is my original book from my childhood. Like a lot of the books here that I have in my room, these are actually original books from my childhood that I took great care of. And I probably should have, I don't even know if that book was cleaned and pressed. I'll have to look at that, but I probably should have at least gone for a 9.6, if not a 9.8. So that's one place where I'm actually kind of kicking myself. So someone is trying to correct me here. According to, again, I'm using a Key Collector app for my reference points here. And according to Key Collector app, 282 is actually the first cover and cameo appearance of Bishop, given that he appears on the last panel. And 283 is actually his first full appearance. So if that's incorrect, we definitely want to reach out to Nick over at Key Collector app so that he can update it. But that's kind of what I'm using for my reference point for the purpose of this video. Scrolling down through some of these comments, Luis is saying, I don't really buy anything that isn't worth at least 15 bucks. I think that everyone, I guess here's my argument for that. If you can buy it for $5 and it's going to go up for 15, why not buy it at $5? Why wait for it to be more expensive? If you're going to see it head in that direction, that's kind of like the purpose of this video, is that, if you have a little bit of forethought and you have a little belief in something that is actually going to happen, then why not pay a little bit less for it if you can, versus waiting for that same thing to actually be more expensive. And at the end of the day, I think everyone has to have a philosophical approach for their collection. Everyone has to decide for themselves how they want to spend their money. And part of the reason why I do these videos is because not everyone has the ability to spend hundreds of dollars on comics. And so if I can raise the profile of a couple of really cool books that people, have access to in dollar bins that they could potentially pick up, then that's part of the reason why I want to do it. Because you can find it in a dollar bin, because the book may go up in value. Why wait for it to be $100 when you can get it for $5? You know what I'm saying? I literally picked this book up when I was in Illinois for like $5. I think it was like $6. Why not buy it when it's $6? Especially if it's right in front of you in a bin and available to you. So that's kind of the reason why I'm doing some of this stuff. Lawrence Jackson says, I would love to see 90s intro Jubilee done in the movies. It was a great way intro to the gold team. Yep. Only time will tell. What about X-Men 8? Don't mess me up. Don't get me off track. Let me stay on the track. All right. So we have one last book that I want to show you again for the purpose of this video. Again, another undervalued book that is also under $10. That has the potential to go up. And I should also say, has the potential to go up to how high? Who the heck knows? I don't know if any of these books are going to go from $7 to $1,000. I don't know if that's going to be the case. But could the book go up a couple of dollars? Yes. Could you buy this book and actually enjoy reading it? Yes. Will reading this book give you additional context potentially for what is going to happen with these characters, both in the comics and in the movies? Potentially, yes. And so I think it's important to just kind of keep in mind that no one is going to become rich off of any of these books. You know what I'm saying? But if you like X-Men, if you like the MCU movies, if you're potentially going to buy these books anyway, this is not a bad time to actually jump on board and snatch these books up. So, you have dueling philosophies right here between Mr. Boyle and Grant here, because Grant is saying that it's funny because he's only bought one or two comics worth more than $15. And again, I think it's just one of those things that everyone, at least in my opinion, should have a philosophical approach for their collections, and if your philosophical approach works for you, then I think that that's perfect. If you don't have a philosophical approach, I definitely want to encourage you to develop one. Develop a goal. What is your plan for your collection? What are you trying to accomplish? Because if you have a written goal, you're more likely to abide by that goal and ultimately, hopefully, achieve that goal versus not having one and kind of meandering through this hobby and wasting a lot of money. So the very last book is this one right here. This is X-Men number 193. This is actually the first appearance of Firestar in regular continuity. Previously, if you guys remember from back in the day, Firestar actually appeared in the TV shows. I think it was like Spider-Man and his friends. Firestar was one of those characters. And so Firestar, this is her first appearance in continuity, Uncanny X-Men 193. This is also the first appearance of Thunderbird, aka James Proudstar in costume. This was a Chris Claremont written book and a John Romita Jr. book. And I actually have multiple copies of this particular book. The reason that I actually selected this one is because of Firestar. If you think back to that that sketch in the Seeds, what is that book? Whatever that preview book was that dropped. This one right here, The Seeds of Tomorrow, Firestar is actually shown in that 2-panel spread. And so this is, again, an undervalued book that right now sells for about $7 according to Key Collector app. And it is the first appearance of Firestar in continuity. And then it also has the benefit of being the first appearance of Thunderbird. So there you go. Another undervalued book. So that is those are the 5-ish books that I wanted to highlight for you guys. Again, make sure you do your research and to figure out whether these are books that you should actually pick up. William Bird is saying 193 is a good read. I actually picked up a collection of X-Men books off of Facebook recently, and I picked up multiple copies. Like in some cases, they had 2 copies of many of the books, both the direct and the newsstand, which complemented my 1 or 2 copies of certain books already. Like I picked up the first, I now have 4 copies of the first appearance of the Marauders, 4 copies of Wolverine and Sabretooth's first battle, 4 copies of their second battle. And I think that you're ultimately going to see Wolverine and Sabretooth square off. That is a classic comic book battle that runs the length of time. Like the relationship between Wolverine and Sabretooth stretches over time. It's very convoluted. It's been depicted in movies already, but you are guaranteed to see the 2 of those guys square off at some point in the future. And so I feel really good about that purchase a couple of weeks ago because I had belief in some of this X-Men stuff was actually going to happen, and fingers crossed it will actually come to fruition. So scrolling back up to the top because I missed a ton of comments here. Here you go. Greg is saying, buy what you like and like what you buy. Well said, my friend. There you go. Chris Barrett is like throwing out all these crazy offers in here. If anyone's interested in X-Force number 1, he is selling it for $1,500. I will sell you one for $1,000. I will sell you a stack of X-Force 1s for $1,000 each. No problem. Get what you love. Money is a tool. Well said, my friend. Scrolling through some of the comments here, we've got a couple of Natasha's reminiscing on X-Men number 193, the first appearance of Firestar. Omega Comics says, I have 3 copies of that book that he picked up for $1 each. Well done, my friend. Again, if you're a fan of the X-Men, a fan of these characters, why not buy them while they're super cheap? I mean, it's not a bad way to go. How many ways is there to collect comics? An infinite number of ways. And, at the end of the day, if you are buying these comics and you're enjoying them and you're enjoying how, the read, if you are enjoying collecting them, if you enjoy completing the run, if you enjoy the artwork, I mean, whatever it is that works for you, if it works for you, then it's good. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's really, really important. But here we go. So this is from my man Hydra. He says, speculation often forces me to purchase books I actually want sooner than I would have done. This isn't always to make money. This is mostly to buy stuff I want before prices get out of reach. Well said, my friend. Again, I use speculation to some degree or another and I think this is what Hydra is saying, to basically prioritize my purchases. When I came back to the hobby, I actually had a want list, and the want list, I want to say, was like 12 books or something like that. And what I did is, depending upon how prices were going with those 12 books that were on my want list, I kind of prioritized the books that were trending upward. And I prioritized them that way because I felt like those books were going to get out of my reach and potentially would not come back within my reach. And so that's how I sorted them out. And so I used the speculation almost as a motivator to pick up the books that I was already going to pick up just a lot sooner. And that's exactly what Hydra said. And I basically did that for X-Men #1, for example. I did that with Spider-Man #1, ASM #1. I attempted to do it with X-Men 101, and that did not work. That book actually shot up like crazy, and I could not buy one. I felt like I felt like the price didn't reflect the significance of the book all that well, and I'm glad that I didn't, because that book ended up falling rapidly after the trailers originally dropped for that book. So I think that in all cases, you have to use your head. You have to sort through this stuff. You have to prioritize this stuff and look at your own situation, look at your own finances, and do what makes the most sense for you and for your collection. So scrolling through some of the comments here, Luis is saying I need to pick up some more of those X-Men keys. I only have a few good X-Men at the moment. I mean, again, now is the time for some of this stuff, now is the time, because the books are out there and they are relatively inexpensive. Grant is saying his philosophical approach, all the Captain America. Well done, my friend. Chuck is in the house. How you doing, my friend? A couple of people talking. Omega is like, who's excited to see Blade in the MCU? I think a lot of people are. I'm hoping that in the next couple of months they actually release some additional details regarding the Blade movie, because they didn't really come out with any details like they did for some of the other movies, like Eternals, for example, where they named off multiple actors and actresses that are going to take place in that project, named the director. I think in the case of Blade, it was designed to build a lot of excitement, and they were like, hey, here's the actor. And that was it. So I think more to come. I think Blade is dope. And so hopefully in the next couple of months, we're actually going to hear a lot more news about some of this stuff. So I'm scrolling down through some of the comments here. All right. So Mr. Boyle is saying he thinks that the X-Men Dark Phoenix was actually a very good movie. Thought it was incredible with some music. So you may be in the minority with that, my friend. I have not seen it, so I honestly have no opinion, but a lot of people did not dig that movie. And for me, I felt like they probably should have done the Phoenix before the Dark Phoenix, because the Dark Phoenix payoff was really, in my opinion, the run up. The run up was the Phoenix saga, right? And so that's why I felt like, even though I haven't seen it, that they could have done it a little bit better by telling the story of the Phoenix and the sacrifice that Jean made to basically save her team. And then, get into the rest of the tragedy kind of after that heroic act has been seen. But to jump to the end where she basically becomes a villain, I felt like it was almost like a disservice to her. And again, I haven't seen the movie, so I may be taking it out of context. There may be some elements there that were integrated that I missed. I don't know. I'll probably see it in another 6 months or so when they drop it on Hulu or something like that. So I reserve the right to change my opinions of that movie. But at the end of the day, man, if you went to see a movie and you actually enjoyed it, I think that's dope. I mean, again, these movies, these comics are all for the purpose of entertainment. And if you are enjoying yourself, I think that's great. Scrolling through some of the comments here, I'm basically giving these undervalued books away. So Johnny Future saying Reggie may be making eBay crash. Undervalued no more. I was kicking myself the other day, man. I talked about a book and didn't go out and buy it. Then I went and looked for it, and the price was actually up. I was like, well, missed that one. So that Krakoa, love comic art, that Krakoa, I actually read that book, and I have 3 copies of that book actually coming. I ordered 3 copies of it. Somebody had a lot, and I just bought all 3, and I read it. And it's an okay read. It's not a great read. It's an okay read. So I thought it was cool to hear how Krakoa actually came into being. I don't know that they fully fleshed it out for me in that comic, but it put a little meat on the bone, and it put the character to some degree or another in historical context, which I thought was great. but I think that there's a lot more that can be done. And it's going to be interesting to see what Jonathan Hickman does based upon the preview that was contained in here of like the Krakoa stuff. My guess is that he is going to flesh out the island in more detail beyond what was actually done in that Journey into Mystery book. At least that's my hope. So we shall see what happens with that. Bu- 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 what's up? Out of curiosity, how many issues did Lobo last? So Kimball is asking a question about the Lobo comic that is on my wall back there that we still cannot find in the videos because I buried the unboxing in a previous video. So Lobo only lasted 2 issues. There was a 3rd issue that I think was created that was never printed. I don't know that anyone's ever seen it, but there were basically only 2 issues. The 2nd issue is pretty darn scarce to find. I want to say it's a pink cover. I want to get it. I just haven't found a nice one just yet. But what happened was that they printed issue number 1. I don't think that retailers knew that the character was actually black, so they sent it out. And then what ended up happening as people were realizing that it was a black character, they started sending issue number 1 back as issue number 2 was about to go out the door. And so I think, issue number 2 did go out, but I think that the distribution was smaller because you had a lot of retailers that were returning the number 1 and basically, I guess, rejecting the number 2. So number 1 is out there. Number 2 is out there, but I think in smaller numbers than the number 1. And then the number 3 was never seen to my knowledge. So I have issue number 1 and hope to have issue number 2 at some point. So scrolling through the comments here, my man Los is here. He says, always collect what you like. Don't get caught up in the spec books. I just finished my run of X-Men number 194 to 190. I'm sorry, 94 to 143. Congrats on that. I think Los is definitely hitting on something here. And this is actually something I recorded a video on that I may or may not release. We'll see. I think that like someone brought up Darth Vader to me yesterday. I think it was my man Rye. And I have no interest in Rye. Even if there's money to be made in, I said that wrong. Even if there's money to be made in this Darth Vader book, I would not buy it just because I'm not interested in Darth Vader. And that's nothing against Rye. It's just a statement of fact that I'm not into Darth Vader. And so you always have to evaluate. This is a spec book, but if it's a spec book that I have no interest in, is that a book that you really want to pick up? Because what happens if you get stuck with that book? What happens if you spend big money on that book and it goes down in value and you can't sell it? Then you have a book that you don't like, that you have no interest in, that you have a lot of money in, and it just is a bad situation, So I think you always have to evaluate, does the spec opportunity make sense for your collection? And that's why I was talking about your philosophical approach for your collection. What is your goal? What is it that you are trying to accomplish for your collection? And does X-Men 193 fit into there? If it doesn't, then who cares about 193? If it does, then you may want to get 193 because that book serves a purpose for your collection. So I just think you've got to put all this stuff in context. Scrolling through some of the comments, Nick says, I enjoy the hunt. I don't read anything I buy. I don't read everything I buy. A philosophical approach. I think that is a philosophical approach that each one of us has, So, scrolling through some of the comments here. So here's a question from Greg. Greg is saying, Reggie, do you prefer buying Slab books or Unslab comics? It depends. It depends. And it depends on a couple of things. And I'll try to kind of keep it brief. If I'm buying a book from eBay, I will like to go, especially if it's a high dollar book, I will go Slabs because I have faith in the third party grading company that they have evaluated that book. They have put that label and that grade on that book. So that gives me confidence in spending some money. If there is a high dollar book and I can buy it in person, I prefer to do that because I can actually see the raw book in person, evaluate the grade of the book for myself, and feel more comfortable with plunking down big money. Raw books purchased online make me a little uneasy. I've been burned one time with ASM 300 that I bought when I first came back into the hobby a couple of years ago. It actually had color touch. I didn't know to look for that. I didn't know to ask about that. And so it was a bad situation. So high dollar books, lots of money. Slab, if I have to buy it and it's not in person, Raw if I can do it in person, because I think also raw books give you some ability to kind of negotiate the grade versus the price versus a graded book that is already graded and the price through FMV has already been established. If there are books that are relatively inexpensive, then it's a how close to FMV can I get that book if it's graded? If the book is worth $15 and someone is selling it for 45, I'm not buying it because it's been slabbed. That just won't happen. I'll buy a raw copy of that book for less money, for $15, $12, $10, something like that. And if I buy that online, I'll roll the dice on an inexpensive book online, especially if it's a modern book, because the likelihood of color touch and that kind of stuff is slimmer, right? And so especially if the seller actually has multiple pictures from angles, front, back, inside cover, blah, 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 you can look at the modern book and be like, okay, that's a 9-ish kind of book. I'll roll the dice on that. So it depends, is the answer. And certainly, Greg, if you want to talk more about that, reach out to me on Instagram and we can definitely have a longer conversation about my approach for some of that stuff. All right. So scrolling through some of the comments here, scrolling through fear of missing out. Young T and I were talking about that. That is real. That is real. But sometimes if you have that goal for your collection, that fear of missing out can be balanced against that, right? I can look at a book and be like, this book does not fit in my collection. Yes, I can make some money on it, but I don't know enough about that book to make an informed decision as to whether that is a good price or a bad price, right? And that's when you can overspend, when you kind of get outside of your comfort zone. Like Golden Age books, I don't even know where to begin, right? I can use a pricing guide, all that kind of stuff, but that's outside of my element. So I want to be a little more cautious if I go into an area that is foreign to me. But that fear of missing out, that is real. That is real. There is no doubt about that. Scrolling down through some of the comments here. So here, Michael said he's new here. Do you guys ever talk about non-Marvel or DC? I'm not a fan of Spawn per se, so that we don't talk a whole lot about Spawn. But from time to time, we do talk about non-DC, non-Marvel books. But yeah, I think a lot of people are excited about Spawn. I am not one of those people. Again, it's kind of, I'm not a Spawn fan and I never have been. But you want to talk about some Pit or some Wet Works or some of that other stuff, Cyber Force, I can get on board with some of that stuff. But Spawn, not so much. That's not necessarily my thing. Scrolling through the comments here. First, Mr. Sinister is still obviously an obtainable copy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I bought a 9.8 recently. I actually have that book on a stack back here. I'm actually going to get to some of the slabs at some point in a different video, but yeah, that is definitely coming. And if you can get a Mr. Sinister for a fair price, that is not a bad way to go. Greg is saying, thank you for the answer. If I'm brother, I'm always in Livermore. Are you kidding? I am always in Livermore. Fantasy on First Street. I am always there with my man Bob. Let me tell you. Cody, how you doing, my friend? It is good to see you here. So Mr. Boyle is saying, I only really buy raw books. Graded books mean that I can't read the comic and can't look inside at all. I always buy raw books. There you go. That's a man with a philosophical approach for his collection that works for him. And I definitely respect that. He's also making the point here that raw books are normally much cheaper. It depends. I think it's tough to make absolutes. I think it's tough to make absolutes because there are a lot of people that will try to sell your raw book at the slabbed book price. And that's what makes that a challenge when they're like, yeah, this book is a 9.6. And I'm like, but a 9.6 raw is not a 9.6 graded, right? And you as great as you are at grading comics cannot guarantee that raw 9.6 will be a graded 9.6. And so again, that is one of the issues in the market right now, is that people will try to charge you graded prices for raw books. And so that is something to kind of be cautious of. Clay is making the point that he never buys big books online, only in person. Again, philosophical approach that works for, for him. Universe X, how you doing? Comic Book Soldier, it is good to see you. Welcome to the live stream. Hit you on IG. Let me know what you think. I will message you back, Cody. I will take a look at it. And just for context here, Regie Collects is my my comic related Instagram. FitNoop 1911 is my is my fitness. So if you hit me on FitNewt1911, you're going to see a lot of fitness photos and photos of my family. But if you want to talk comics, Reggie Collects is what it is. But Cody, I will message you back as soon as I wrap up here, my friend. Scrolling through some of the comments here. Peter from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. How you doing? Welcome to the live stream, Peter. My Canadian friends up there. Alex is saying, "Hola, I caught another live stream. What's the oldest book in your collection?" Oof. Oof. I don't know. I do have some golden age books in my collection that people have given to me from, I want to say, like the 40s and 30s, like Daffy Duck and some of that other stuff, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. The oldest book would have to be some of those. I mean, I have X-Men 1, I have Amazing Spider-Man 1. So those are all from the 60s. Yeah, I mean, I think I have a fair number of pretty old books. But off the top of my head, those are the ones that I would probably have to stick with. Los, thank you for stopping by, brother. It is good to see you. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Shout out to all the Bay Area comic book collectors. Stone Cutter. I think it was Stone Cutter that went shopping up in, or it was somebody that went shopping somewhere. Was it Sacramento? And picked up a bunch of books. And now I'm like, well, maybe I don't need to go to Sacramento now because all the books have been picked up. Party time comics. It's a party, y'all. Welcome to the live stream, my friend. It is good to see you. Michael is saying, thanks for the answer. Not a big Spawn guy either, but 300 and 301 are record-breaking books. I'm going to get them. No, I think that you should. I mean, I think that you should. I mean, I think that those are record-breaking books. You know, I think that each person has to kind of decide, you know, where they want to drop their money, right? And I say that because there is an infinite number of comics out there. There is an infinite amount of speculation that is happening. There are so many hot books. There are so many great opportunities. There are so many variants. There are so many this and that. And I think every person has to kind of say, you know, if I have a dollar, where do I want to spend my dollar? You know, like I'm a fan of the Walking Dead TV show. I had never really bought a Walking Dead comic, an individual issue. I had books that I picked up as part of a collection that I sold off, but I went out and bought Walking Dead 191, 192, 193, multiple copies. I'm actually in the process of buying a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive variant of 193. And so I'm not the biggest Walking Dead comic book fan, but I recognize the historical significance of, you know, Rick Grimes dying and that series ending. And I opted to buy that book. And so it's one of those things where that book, those books that I picked up don't necessarily fit my collection, but because of their historical significance, it made sense. Like the first female turtle appearing made perfect sense. I have never bought a turtle comic in my life and potentially will never again, but I deviated from my focus on Amazing Spider-Man and superheroes to pick up these books because they're significant. But by having a goal, I could decide to do that. You know what I'm saying? And the vast majority of my money still goes towards my goal, but occasionally dropping some money on this other stuff hurts not. So yeah, 300 and 301 I think are going to be really big books for Image, for the industry. I haven't seen any of the covers, I don't think. But yeah, if you pick them up because you dig them, I say that that's perfectly fine, perfectly fine. So don't let me or anyone else poo-poo the things that you want to do for your collection. Funny Monkey Comics and Los Gatos. I've never even heard of that, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew. Let me take a photo of that. Because a lot of times what I do is I will pull up Google and I'll search for comic shops and then I'll just go to comic shops. You know, I've never seen that one in Los Gatos. I've only been in Los Gatos a handful of times purposefully. I may be driven through it, but I've only been there purposefully like maybe 2 or 3 times. So I will definitely have to look that one up. You may see a video drop at some point while I'm hunting at the Funny Monkey Comics down in Los Gatos. Old Wolf 65 is listening from work. It is good to see you, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. I definitely appreciate that. Connor is over in Ireland. We are international people. Reggie Collects is international. we are hitting the continents out there. All right. It is good to see you guys. We have someone at least from Ireland. We have at least one or two people from the UK, and then we always have some Canadians up in the room. So it's definitely good to see all you guys. And I want to thank everyone, whether you were in the US or not in the US. I want to thank you for spending a little bit of time with me, because I definitely enjoy these live streams. I personally love Spawn. He is probably one of my favorite anti-heroes, have hundreds of Spawn books as well. Yep, there you go. And you would think I would dig him because his last name is Simmons, but I have one copy of the #1, a couple of like 1 through 10. Somebody gave me a really cool Matina cover with the split face. I think it was in like maybe $2.99 or something like that. I don't have very many Spawn books at all, but like I said, Pitt, you want to talk some Pitt? I have plenty of Pitt. I think I have 5 Pitt #1s. I think I have 5 of those things. So what is this? As you know, my store never charges slab prices for non-slabbed books. Mr. Carter is dropping that one in there. Scrolling down. I get both raw and slab. Both process can be reversed to my need. It will crack, slab, read. Why? Because it's mine. There you go. Well said, Lawrence. Well said. Universe X is saying he says he follows me on Instagram, and he saw that I picked up that first Jane Foster as Thor. So what's crazy is that I actually picked up a collection from Oakland, California about a year ago. And the guy was actually, I think, an intern for Image. And so there was a ton of Image books in there, a ton of Walking Dead, a ton of signed books from various events that he went to for Image. He also had a bunch of Thor books. And so he has like Thor 1 through 5 or something like that. And yeah, so I saw that book and I'm like, I think I have that. So I went digging in the bins, and sure enough, I had Thor #1. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think I also have like 705, which is like a really cool Thor cover. I think I have Thor #1 volume 5, which is the male Thor, I guess, when he came back or something like that. Yeah. So scrolling through. Stonecutter says, yes, he hit Sacramento and he left me some ASM. I need to make it that way, man. I need to make it that way. I may get up there at some point in the next couple of weeks before a couple of other things happen. So I may have to get up there and check that thing out. Because it is, last time I was in Sacramento, I actually went up there to pick up a collection. A guy was selling, what was he selling? Like 4 long boxes of some really good stuff. So I actually drove up there and snagged that from him. And then I made a couple of other trips up there to Sacramento, mostly to pick up comics collections. But it's been a good 8 months or so since I've been up there. Maybe it's time to swing that way. I've heard some really great stuff about the comic shops that are up there, so I may have to make that move. Chris is asking if Al Simmons, aka Spawn, is a relative of mine. No, he is not a relative of mine. But I dig anybody by the name of last name Simmons, except for like Richard. But yeah, there you go. All right. So anyway, I'm going to get myself out of here. I want to thank you guys for spending a little bit of your day with me. Again, this was a nice little recap of 5 X-Men related comics that could potentially be undervalued that you may want to consider picking up. I would encourage you to do your research, to think about how these books might fit into your collection, to think about whether these are books that you want to pick up before you actually go out and buy them. I may actually do maybe 1 or 2 more episodes of this X-Men undervalued series, if you will, because I have another stack of books that are actually inbound that I picked up recently that I want to show you guys. So maybe 1 or 2 other videos that I'll do. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you guys want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. Regie Collects on Instagram and regiecollects@gmail.com. And if you need me, I am not too hard to find.